Thank you for joining us and sticking around on our Wanted Fugitive show. We're doing something a little different today. We're doing an interview segment because we have a pretty important topic that we wanted to talk about. So I do have Deputy Chief Chip Simmons with me today, and we wanted to talk about an issue that kind of had gone on in the city a couple years ago. It was going on in the county, and now it's kind of back today, right?
Yeah, the bottom line is it's infants dying in a bed or a crib when they have parents sleeping with them. And a couple years ago we had this issue. I know Sheriff Morgan and I met with the medical examiner, Dr. Minyard, and we had a whole media blitz about it. And as many of you may recall, we had some billboards that never ever sleep with your, with your child.
I remember seeing those. They were all over town. And
unfortunately, that's why we're here again today, because we've seen an uptick.
Yep. So that's why we brought Captain Janes on today, because she's kind of the expert in that, or she's the head over the investigative unit that would be looking into those. So this year, though, we've had a couple of them this year, correct?
We have. In January, we've had 3 infant deaths already, which is pretty high compared to last year. Last year, we had 6 total for the year, and in the month of January, we've had 3 infant deaths. We just wanted to highlight the issue of safety. If you're co-sleeping, there are a lot of things that can happen that you don't anticipate and you never foresee. It's not going to be you, it's going to be somebody else. But unfortunately, we have examples of where that's happened in our county. We just want to make the public aware that this is a real issue, and it's heartbreaking and tragic, not just for the families but for us too. So we want to make sure everybody's aware. And
I'm sure everybody gets the pamphlets. I'm expecting right now. So I know when I go to the doctor's office, they give you the pamphlets and they tell you everything and the dangers of co-sleeping. And people normally think about don't put the baby in the bed with you. It's kind of where you're
in between the mother and the father.
Yeah, that's where your mind goes to, right? But it's more than just that.
It's way more than just that. Some of the examples that we've had this year already, one was co-sleeping in an adult bed with 2 parents, but got tangled up in the comforter. So it's just something as simple. You think everything is okay. One parent gets up, goes to work. The other parent is left there with a child, and that extra blanket wraps around that child, and unfortunately, they can, asphyxiate from that.
Well, and these things aren't obviously not intentional.
Oh, absolutely not.
As you mentioned, they give you pamphlets, and I wasn't aware of that, but I guess they give you information to say, hey, these are some things to be on the lookout for and to be aware of. And I'm wondering if January, because of winter month, maybe people have more blanket and more quilting and sort of thing in their bedroom.
That could very well be it. It's cold in the house, and it's been unseasonably cold, here in the Panhandle in particular.
But we didn't want to wait. I mean, just because it's January, we understand that we had a whole year to really, before we count them and count them statistically, but we didn't want to wait.
No.
Because I can tell you that Captain Janes, they've come into my office and we'll talk about the different things that go on, and after you hear about 1 and then 2, it's like, wait, this is the thing that we need to address, and that's why Captain James came and said, hey, can we talk about this some more?
Right.
And because I remember a couple of years ago doing the same thing, and you mentioned one example is that 2 parents sleeping together and it got caught in the sheets itself.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Or the blanket. Okay.
Right.
Well,
but there's other instances, right? Like you shouldn't have anything in the crib or the bassinet with the child at any time, and one with the oversized stuffed animal.
One was an oversized stuffed animal where they thought placing that stuffed animal around the child would prevent it from falling to either side of the bed, but unfortunately the baby wedged itself in there and it suffocated. So it's simple things that you don't expect for tragedy to come out of, and it does. We had another example this year of a breastfeeding incident where, a mom has a toddler already. Now we have a brand new infant baby. She's probably exhausted, and the baby needs to feed in the middle of the night. And, she feeds, and unfortunately they both fall asleep, and, when she wakes up, the baby is passed. So it's just tragic. It's certainly unintentional, but it's something that I'm seeing the statistics increase enough that I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and make this announcement so we can get these numbers back under control, because right now, if we continue at this rate, it's scary.
We're going to surpass last year.
Absolutely.
Well, if you have told me that we'd had this uptick, I would, in my mind and in our discussions that we have in our daily meetings, would be it's a blanket thing, rolling over into someone. I would have never considered the breastfeeding or even the oversized stuffed animals. I mean, I could see people would get those, whether you win them at a fair or you buy them for it and you prop them up in a bed because of the appearance, make it look nice and homey. And but I would never have thought that would be the cause of a baby death, and certainly not the breastfeeding thing.
Yeah, well, she told me about another one, a couch cushion.
Yeah,
And
it
that's
doesn't always
something-
happen in a bed. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be a mistake to think that it only happens in a bed. One parent fell asleep with a child in her arms, but woke up with the child in the crook of the couch between her and the couch cushions. And just something as simple as that, you know, you're tired and the baby is sleeping and it's not developed enough to let you know, hey, I'm in a bad spot, I can't move, I can't breathe. And so it is really sad when something like this happens. And if we can prevent it by this public announcement, that's what we want to do, and save people from that kind of tragedy in their lives, because it certainly
Yeah,
is.
I think like Chief was saying, just all these other examples, because when you think about it, it is my mind automatically goes to the bed and, you know, having them in the bed with you, but it can be anywhere. And
It can be.
those first few months, you're exhausted, you're,
Right.
you're tired, and it can easily happen to anybody at any time, but just kind of being aware that that could happen to you. Hopefully you'll think about it before you start to doze off, or you think about it before you lay your child down in bed. And you can't put blankets in there with them either. You know, we're talking about how cold it is, but nothing should be in there.
Right. We had two instances where it was a blanket that caused the death of the child. And so you just want a very light blanket. Even if it's cool, a baby's kind of hot anyways. And so they really don't need all the extra blankets that we think they need. And so we just have to be really careful, keep it simple, keep it light. That way, if it does get over their face, it doesn't suffocate them, and you know, they can still move about and they don't get tangled. That's the biggest issue. But
you know, we're always asked about advice on different prevention of crime, prevention of this type of things, and we always say, it seems like I always say, awareness.
Yeah.
You know, how do you prevent from keep from being a victim of a purse snatcher or something like that? Well, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of where the potentials are. And I think that would fit this case as well. Be aware of what the dangers are.
That's right.
You know, whenever you take your child home, then, you know, you're told to put them on their back or the front. I'm not sure which one it is now.
They change it every year, I
Yeah,
think.
they change it, you
quite
know.
a bit.
That you don't feed them hard food or real grown-up food until a certain point, and all those types of things. And then I think just add this to the checklist of things that an expectant parent or certainly a parent, grandparent, guardian, uncle,
Anybody
aunt,
that would
whoever
have
would
any
watch them,
interaction, that's right.
especially those. That brings me to another point. The parents may be very familiar with it, but is the babysitter very familiar
right.
with it? Is a
great-
uncle or
great
an
thing to bring
aunt
up.
who's babysitting, or just taking a nap on a couch?
Right.
You know, that's important to note, that it's not always in a bed. So just add that to the checklist of things to be cautious about.
That's right. There's been a lot of illness with respiratory and stuff like that, which just compounds this issue. If you do have a baby that's sick or ill and you know that they've got some breathing issues, make sure that your babysitter's aware of that and takes that extra precaution to make sure that, you know, it can breathe and that it doesn't get overheated and stuff like that, because it really can lead to something that, you know, you just didn't expect. And we want to prevent it.
It's obviously a lot of responsibility having
It
a child,
is.
and that's
You know,
part of the thing you sign up for, you know.
Exactly. We've talked about some very serious things on this TV, and we go out to different speaking engagements and we talk about some very serious things, but I can't think of something more serious and more pertinent in regards to safety is that of our children. And not just our children, our infants, our babies,
They don't
our
have a voice
future.
yet.
And it's just that nothing is more important than this. And the fact that Captain James came and said, hey, can we put this information out, because some people must not be getting it,
That's right.
you know, or we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. So the decision was made. Talked to Sheriff Morgan. We said, hey, we're going to do whatever we can to get that information out, much like we did a couple of years ago. And again, unfortunately, we're in a position where we have to remind everyone again. And so we obviously appreciate you bringing it, first of all, bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then secondly, being willing to come in here and discuss these things, because they're not easy to discuss.
No,
They're
it's
really not.
Not at all. It's very, like you were saying, it's a very tragic thing. It's very tough, not only on the family that has to go through it, but when you guys show up, I mean, that's a lot of you have children of your own, and
That's right.
it's very, very tough
Right.
to see and
Right.
to deal with it. It's tough in the community to hear.
It really is, and that just talking about us talking
Yeah.
about it, someone will watch this, and then hopefully they'll talk to some people and it'll either direct them to watch this,
Right.
or they'll remember it and they'll go look at it themselves. Because with today's social media, hopefully we can spread word pretty quickly, and our hope obviously is that we have no more.
Right.
That's it. So we won't have to come back and remind them 2 months from now, hey, it's not getting through.
Yeah.
It's good to get through to you. So that's why we're here.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us with this
Thank
and
you.
bringing it to light. And again, if you're planning on having a baby anytime soon, have an infant, just think about that. Please share this on social media and get the word out, let everybody know. If you have any more questions about it, you can always email us at pio@escambiaso.com.
Thank you.